What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down 3 different wide receiver press releases that you need to know. We're going to be going over the technique of the release, the name of the release, and when you guys should be using it. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope it could teach you a few new things. But also, fellas, if you're a wide receiver and you would like to get faster, check out that very first link in the description below where you could get access to 75 plus speed and agility drills to improve your overall athleticism. We break down every single drill in different categories like running mechanics. We break it down into different plyometric exercises, and we give you the exact sets and reps to do and put them into different workout plans for you guys to follow. So if you guys would like to improve your speed, check out that very first link in the description below. Let's get started with this video. So this first release here is going to be called a slide crossover release. Now, it's not like the slide crossover release that you're used to seeing on a slant route. This is going to be for a 10-yard stop route or like a 10-yard hitch route. Receiver's taking this outside release, and he is just putting the brakes on right at 10 yards. So let's play this thing full speed, then we'll break down the exact technique of this. So this receiver comes off the ball, gives a little jab inside, crossover move, puts the brakes on, and gets that DB to settle. So the first part of this release is going to be the slide. And the slide is set up by this inside jab step that this wide receiver takes here. Now, I know it's kind of tough to see, but I want you to try to pay attention to his inside, or his right foot on this, the foot that is up on the line of scrimmage, his inside foot. So you see how he takes this little jab with the front foot right there. That's not necessarily like a jab step or maybe like a speed release. I consider that like a prep step. So I think there's 2 types of ways for you to create explosion with a slide release. It comes down from a prep step, or it comes down from something called a kick step. A kick step is when you take your back foot and you kick it like literally in this direction where I'm drawing this arrow behind your front foot to create some explosion and load up your hips. I've been more accustomed to taking this like prep step because it's a way to push off of this step to gain some ground on this slide release. So what is every DB used to seeing when a wide receiver slides to the outside and gives this little patient shuffle here? They're used to a wide receiver giving a move and then trying to run a slant underneath. Sometimes DBs are taught anytime that you see a receiver slide to the outside, be patient and sit to the inside. Now, this is a great example of a wide receiver using that to our advantage. What all great route runners are able to do off the line is they're able to make their releases look the same. It's the same type of slide. He slides to the outside, but instead of doing an inside, then outside crossover, he does an outside, he goes left, then right. And it's kind of a smaller step, but again, it doesn't need to be a big, crazy step, but he goes out, then in. It's a slide, out, in. Slide, out, in. So we're still doing the same type of crossover. It's the same type of rhythm. It's the same type of slide, but we're just crossing over the opposite way. Now, why are we doing this, right? We're obviously trying to make this route look like a slant route from the start. I want this DB to think we're sliding and then trying to cut back underneath him. But also, when we come up to the line, we see that this DB is inside shade pre-snap. So every release that you guys choose off the line, it's based off of 2 things. 1, it's based off of his leverage. 2, it's based off of his distance, right? And then sometimes the DB might jump and we may have to react to the DB, whatever it is, and we'll talk about that. But it's based on his leverage and it's based on his distance. So when he's inside shade press, we know he's trying to stop a slant. We know he's trying to stop a dig, a post, anything to the inside. So we slide, and this crossover is also a way to attack his leverage because he's taught don't give up the inside. You see the slide release, stay patient. So when we attack him to the inside, that might get him to hesitate for a second, stop his feet, and set up the outside route. Whether that's a fade, whether that's an out route. I personally don't like this on an out route because I feel like that takes too long. But a fade, a stop route, maybe even a dig with an outside release. This is a great release to use. Now, let's talk about what happens here because releases are about having a plan, obviously. And that's what comes down to when should you use this? You want to use this release when this DB's inside shade press. Now, the reason why I like the slide release, though, is that it's a great release to use if you need to react. So, let's say, for example, you slide to the outside and this DB expects the slide and go. You guys have probably all seen Justin Jefferson do that release, where he comes off the ball, he slides, and then he just takes off on a fade. Same with Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen. All the best route runners do that type of release. So sometimes you might get a DB who's a little greedy. You'll slide to the outside and he may jump and overcommit. So what do you think you want to do? You got to run a 10-yard stop. You could just put the brakes on, take the inside release, and then put the brakes on at 10 and stop. So fellas, This slide release is a great release to use to obviously cross him up, make it look like a slant, attack his leverage, but you can also react off of it if that DB overcommits. Press releases in terms of when to use them, it's based on his leverage and distance and also based on reaction. So let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job here by Rieger sliding, hitting a crossover, getting that DB to sit, and then winning on that stop route. Okay, so now next release we're going to be going over is something called a dive release. So a dive release is pretty much like exactly how it sounds. You're going to be just diving to the inside, trying to sell like you are running a drag. So I personally like this release against a DB. This DB I would say is a little bit shaded to the outside. I don't think this is maybe necessarily the best time when he's outside shade. I like it personally when he's head up, but it could work when he's outside shade, okay? So let's play this thing full speed, then we'll break it down. So this receiver comes off the ball, dives to the inside, gets that DB to open up his hips, think it's a drag, and then win over the top on this fade ball. So let's talk about it, right? If you're a drag-heavy team, like let's say you're a slot receiver, even an outside receiver, and you like to run a lot of like a mesh concept where the two slot receivers drag, like we have a dig, and then we have maybe like a post over the top or whatever it is. But you run a lot of this. You run a lot of drags. This is a great release to use. You see the Seattle Seahawks use this release a lot, like especially Tyler Lockett and especially Doug Baldwin when he played. Doug Baldwin was one of the best off the line, but they would make their releases look like this dive release or this drag every single time. Like they would go this far. Like they would run a drag, then they would do the dive release where they cut back out, and then they would do like a dive release. They would plant right here off the right foot, then throw a jab with the left foot, and then go back to their drag. And this guy would jump way outside, and they get a ton of space. If you watch Tyler Lockett film, you will see those releases pop up every single time because they're a drag-heavy team. So that's when you guys would want to use this, and I know a lot of you have offenses like this. So you might be thinking, well, Coach, what if I do this and this DB doesn't commit? What if he doesn't bite? My attitude needs to be that I'm going to make him bite with 3 specific things. We come off the ball, and you're going to do this dive release. You see how he takes this little like jab step with his back foot? That is very similar to that prep step that we saw in the first example, where he does the prep step with his inside foot to push him out on the slide. We take this prep step with the back foot to create some energy. So he goes 1, and again, it's 2 hard steps across this DB's face. He steps with his left foot, bam, cuts off the right foot. Now, again, like I said, that little prep step is to kind of load him up, to get him set, to get him exploding off the ball, because speed is what's going to get this DB to move. That's the first thing. Second thing is going to be your stride. If you guys come off the ball, I've seen receivers do this. They'll try to do this dive release, and they don't even pass the line of scrimmage. They take choppy steps. DB will not bite. He does not buy that you're running a drag. Nobody runs a drag with choppy steps all the way across the field. So again, does this little prep step, long strides, good speed, hips, shoulders, and eyes are all committed to the drag. That's the third best way to do it. Speed, stride, body language. And that is what will make that DB move, whether he's a little bit shaded to the outside, whether he's head up, but you have to use this if you are a drag-heavy team. Could it work if you don't use a lot of drags? Absolutely, but I mean, I feel like sometimes, you know, if they're not necessarily threatened by the drag, maybe these guys won't commit. So this is a good release to use, I think, even if you're not in a drag-heavy team, but you got to make sure you sell it. It's a whole hell of a lot easier when you run that drag over and over again. So let's play this again, full speed one more time. Great job of that receiver doing that dive and then winning on that fade route over the top. One other thing that I would like to add, guys, is that he does this dive release, but this DB is able to recover because of how wide he goes off of this dive. You see how he's almost like running away from him? This receiver should be right there. He should be as tight as he can. He should be hip to hip with the DB, but because he went super wide, this DB has an easy cutoff angle to be able to at least be in a position to make a play. He should be open by 3 or 4 yards, but because he went super wide off the release, that caused him to not have a ton of separation. You will get more separation if as soon as you get this DB to commit, you swat him by and you stay right past his hip. Let's get vertical as fast as possible. Let's play this again one more time. So again, great dive release. Just make sure that we stay skinny and we stay tight to the DB. So now, next release we're going to be going over here. This is going to be something called a diamond release. So a diamond release is the exact opposite of a dive release. You would want to use this when you have a DB who's inside shade press and you have to run a slant route or maybe even a 5-yard in. So this receiver comes off the ball, attacks the outside shoulder, throws him by, and then wins on that slant. So let's talk about it, right? He comes off, Again, how many steps was the dive release? It was 2. So since the diamond release is in the opposite direction, it is a total of 3 steps. Dive release is 2, diamond release is 3. So we were trying to attack his outside shoulder, his outside hip, trying to make him think we were running what? A fade. We want to make him think that we're going deep. So it's just like a drag. When you run a drag, you got to freaking go. When you're running a fade, you got to go. You got to run hard. You got to run with good stride. You got to run with good body language. So it's 3 steps. So he's here. That's 1. He goes here. 2, 3. And again, you see how he kind of broke down on it and dropped his hips? That's not incorrect. You just better be fast out of it if you're going to run the route like that. If you're going to drop your hips on this type of cut, I don't recommend it, by the way. But if you are, you got to make sure that you're running fast, you're running in good stride, and when you get out of the break, you are accelerating, not jogging, allowing this DB to recover. Because 1 step is obviously faster than 2, 3, 4 steps, okay? So that's a diamond release, guys. We want to use that when it's against inside shade press. It's the same goal when we had that head up press. If I'm lined up here, I'm the receiver, I have head up press from a DB, my dive release, I'm trying to get him to crash down, so I slip out. And then if I'm here, the receiver, I got a DB who's inside shade, I got to run a slant. My goal is to get him to crash to the fade, bam, slip underneath and run the slant. So the diamond, you can do that, and then the dive would be the opposite way. So let's play this again, full speed one more time. Great job by this receiver attacking the outside shoulder and showcasing a perfect diamond release. All right, fellas, really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. Always appreciate the feedback. Always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, if you would like 75 plus speed and agility drills all put into categories with the exact sets and reps to do, made into workout plans as well, check out that very first link in the description below. We'd love to get you on that. I'll see you guys next time.